Now this one's going to be a little bit interesting, though I'd argue they're all interesting. This is Metal Cardbot Glober, who I sometimes want to say Globber, but just has the one B, so Glober. And this is a figure that I thought looked cool, but ultimately passed up on when it first came out. And then I sort of inadvertently found out a thing that I thought was like basically a reason. One of the main reasons I avoided this figure the first time around, I came to find out was a non-reason. So now I have Glober as a card. It's actually a respectable size, but we'll be looking at this more later. And here is the robot himself, and this is a very obvious, I feel like, design choice, let's say. Now, you could argue it's possibly got a bit of a Crocodile Dundee thing going, and all the pockets and whatnot with the Safari style print stuff, like maybe Steve Irwin, I don't know, RIP. But no, I feel like this is really, well, it's really more of an Indiana Jones thing, and we'll get into why when we get into this, which is probably really obvious to everyone, but still. Also, it was, I think it was KR Brickbot on the Discord was saying that basically in the show, Glober is definitely, it's just straight up Indiana Jones, so there's that too. Which means you can actually say, and it would be correct, to say that this machine kills fascists. Which is awesome. Anyway, Glober is very orangey yellow with some orange, some gray. I think the colors here are pretty nice. The gray, the gray works. I kind of feel like something a little bit darker would work a little bit better. And also with the orange and the yellow too. In particular, like the pockets up here, I feel like there's just maybe there could have been a little bit more contrast between the colors. I do think that the gunmetal-y silver that they've got for like the feet, thighs, chest, and wheel wells, like that works. Maybe if it was a little darker, it would punch out a little bit further and be a little bit more punchy. I don't know what I'm saying, but I think it does work. It's more the paint up here that I feel like is like it's darker, but I don't know. It does blend a little bit with the orange. Like this bit right here in particular is a little mushy, and yeah, the yellow and the orange maybe a little mushy. It's not so much a criticism of like, oh, this is wrong, and more of a, if they dialed up the contrast just a little bit more, I think it would pop extra hard, but what's here is fine. It's good. And for what he is, it's surprisingly clean. The legs are filled in by wheels, which is pretty cool. I like that they kind of clean up back here, but also fill in the gaps back there. He's got a little bit of this backpack, which is a shame, but it's not terrible, and it gets out of the way. I actually kind of like the wheels back here. One of the first videos I watched of this guy when I was really giving him a second thought was they left the wheels up. Like they just forgot you could fold them down. And I was looking at it kind of like, well, that's a little bit but whatever. But then when I was watching the video, I noticed the joints back there and it was like, did they just forget to fold those down? And then, yeah, watching other videos, they totally just fold down. And I think that cleans them up really nicely. Yep, this is a cool robot overall. The white, at least, actually works pretty well with the yellow and the orange, so I like that. And I kind of like that they used it sparingly, too. Having it just for the face and the fists, I don't know. It works. The torso's a little bit weirdly proportioned with, like, the extremely thin waist, but then, like, the ab section's much, much narrower than the pecs, I guess you could say, which, he's a robot, it's fine, but it's a little bit, like, wonky in the proportions, but overall, he's cool. And Glober's noggin is where you really see the homage, I guess. It's got the fedora, but it's kind of a very specific shape of fedora that definitely does not come across as like a cowboy hat or anything like that. So like I think that works with the design. Also, I kind of dig the little light up there, which sets it apart from the usual, but also makes sense if he's supposed to be like some kind of archaeology explorer type bot. I don't really know. The colors are good. I think the yellow and orange work okay here, but again, it's a little bit mushy with the tones. A little bit of contrast would be nice. Again, that orange on the, like, that's when it's like a little bit of paint. Maybe they just needed to do more paint, like extra coats of paint. I don't know, but a little mushy. But the silver pop's really nice. The white pop's really nice. And once again, you got that really, really glorious metallic green that they use for a lot of metal Cardbot eyes, which just looks so good. And the shape of the face is, I mean, the face and head overall are kind of whatever. The sculpting is nice enough. The shape is nice enough. I think the faceplate looks good, but it's also very simple. It's just the hat's doing all the work here. That's where all the personality is coming from. Not a complaint, just an observation. But yeah, it's I mean, it's also kind of par for the course for a lot of metal Cardbot figures. That thing that I said was kind of a deterrent for me at first with Glober was actually the articulation, and I will explain all of that when I get to that particular bit. But the head, as you saw, is on a ball joint, and it does go up and kind of down. You do get left and right tilt, and it can go all the way around. If you want him to look down further, you can actually unclick the panel that the transformation hinge is on, so you can kind of use that. And that does work to a point. If you go too far down, it looks ridiculous, but you can get a little bit more dynamic with the downward motion on the head that way. The shoulders. The shoulders can go all the way around. Not the fist got caught on the thing back there, but they can go all the way around and go out on this hinge here, the one click. And this is the thing that I was like, I don't really like that, because there's no joint here to go out. This is to go back for the transformation, so you can't bring the arm out any further at this joint, which, yeah, this kind of bummed me out that the arms could only go out that far. But as you might have guessed, because I mentioned it before, they actually don't just go out this far. There is a second joint up in here that lets you bring the shoulder out further. So you can actually get basically a T-pose out of this guy, and that is great. The only problem with this is they're very kind of, like this in particular is a very solid click. This one, it's also solid, but you can kind of cheat it. So you can kind of get degrees between the two points. But it would, I kind of feel like maybe this could have either had more detents or not been as solid. But still, you get much better outward motion than I initially thought, and that I really like. You do get a bicep rotation. You also get 90 degrees of elbow bend. Or if you use the lower joint, 90 degrees of elbow bend. And if you use both the joints together, you get a much, much deeper curl at the elbow. So great elbow articulation. The fists do not rotate, but they do this. You can do this if you want. The waist does rotate, and it doesn't just go straight 90 degrees. There's actually 2 clicks between 90 degree points. So I feel like that's a good amount of clicks there. The hips can go forward a little bit past 90, can go back to 90, basically, because the backpack thing here is kind of in the way, but can basically go to 90. They can go out almost to 90. Can't really go out further than that, but that's close enough to 90. I think you get a thigh rotation that's detented for some reason, but you can kind of cheat it if you want. The knees are a little bit wonky. So you've got this joint here, which can bend to 90, and then you've got a second joint you can bend so you can go a little bit deeper. And you can do it however you want. That's basically as deep as it's going to get. The problem with the knees is they're just kind of like, they lock into place straight, and then they unlock, and then they're a little bit on the loose side. Like, they're not floppy, but they're just a little bit awkward to use. But, you know, as you can see, they hold their position. They're not flopping around. It's just a little bit weird how they thunk into place when they're straight, and then once you unthunk them, they're a little bit eh. And for the feet, you do actually get ankle tilt. The little gray bits can tilt this far. They cannot tilt any further than this, but there you go. And you can even, if you want, use the transformation. You can detransform the figure a little bit. You can unclick this for some forward motion on the foot, though it's not, it's probably not going to be load bearing because this joint isn't really that tight. But you can use that. Or you can unclick this joint for like a toe point, which doesn't really look good and also probably isn't very solid, but it's things you can do. So, articulation on Glober is way better than I expected, especially once I found out about that outward motion on the shoulder, so I dig that. And now for the card accessory. Well, first of all, as usual card accessory, there's the card image of Glober. Name, because this is an older Hello Cardbot figure. The newer ones don't do the names anymore, but you just pop this off, and I appreciate the fact that it's closer to regular metal Cardbot accessory size, like old school, than some of the new ones that are gigantic. And around back, there's the chrome symbol from whichever season this guy was from. I forget which one. And now there's all of this happening, and there's a lot here. So first, to transform this, you want to fold this panel up, and then essentially all of this is tabbed in, so you kind of unfurl it. You can untab here, untab here, untab here, and then these bits don't tab together, but the other sections do. So you can untab all of this, and then you want to swing this out, but there's not a lot of room here, which is weird because you notice these edges here, where these fold in on themselves, they're beveled. These aren't. I don't know why they did that, because the fact that these are like straight and not beveled means that if you want to straighten this out, you kind of have to rotate it in order to bring it around. Otherwise the corners will catch on each other. And like, it's not the worst thing, but it's just this weirdly unnecessary bit of fiddliness that I feel like they absolutely could have addressed by simply not giving these sharp edges. But anyway, fold this out. This little bit on the end can unfold, and this bit here, this yellow chunk here is actually tabbed into the orange bit here, and you want to just pop that out. And I always forget which direction it clips in. It's like there's a slight kind of hook tab shape to it. But unfold that and flip this all the way around. And now, bring the arm over here. This comes in, and this clip will go over this peg on the gray piece hanging below the forearm. And once that clips in, you can kind of straighten out the fist. And now this panel, it was lowered on this inner hinge for the card mode. You want to use the outer hinge to bring it down, and this peg in here will clip onto the inside of the forearm, and that attaches the accessory. And there's Glober with his card accessory, which is a big old whip. And this is really cool. It weirdly makes me think of Kurata, Beast Wars Neo Kurata. Love that guy. No longer have him for comparisons, unfortunately, but that was a great figure, and like this just makes me think of that, except this is way more posable, and the figure itself is way more posable, so you can get some really cool stuff going with this. So the posability on this thing, you've got essentially just dumbbell ball joints in multiple locations, so you've got the rotation at every single segment, and the bendability at every single segment, and because of that rotation, you can rotate the joints around, so if you wanted this thing to really coil up, you absolutely could. And like, the joints are, as of right now at least, solid enough that they can pretty much hold a pose, unless of course we're talking like the like this joint here is not going to be able to hold the entire weight of the entire whip accessory. But especially when you're like resting it on the ground or something like that, it's pretty darn solid. And they're ball joints, so you could always, tighten them up if you need to, which isn't too hard. So yeah, it's cool. It's really, really cool. And the way I typically have this guy displayed is I essentially just have the whip come down and like wrap around his feet, because I just think that looks cool. But there we go. There is Glober's really cool accessory. Now, height-wise, he is a little bit shorter than maybe people would typically expect, because, your average metal Cardbot is pretty sizable. So he is on the shorter side for a metal Cardbot. But compared to, the average size modern deluxe stand-in of Ova Prime, he is still way bigger and bulkier. Though he is also noticeably smaller than Tobot V Wild Chief. He's a bit more in line with a older than him, actually, a metal Cardbot figure like Blackhook, but Blackhook is a little bit taller. He is actually very slightly taller than the other weirdly orange and yellow and white metal Cardbot figure that I own, though I don't know, for some reason the orange and yellow on Tacky works better for me than it does with Glober. It's like very slightly different tones, maybe, I don't know, or maybe the way it's broken up. The point is, he's slightly taller than Tacky, but Tacky's also kind of way more complicated and has better articulation. And just because, here he is with metal Cardbot W 7ard, and 7ard is gigantic compared to him. Now comes the fun part, trying to transform Glober on camera while our always horrible and inconsiderate upstairs neighbors let their child, who really is old enough to know better at this point, bang indiscriminately on their keys, like piano or whatever it is they have going on up there. It was fantastic the day we realized they brought one of those things home, by which I mean the musical instrument, not the child. Yeah, anyway, if you hear obnoxious off-key banging in the background, that's what it is. Anyway, to transform Glober, to start, I'm going to start with the arms, because, this guy's transformation is really interesting and cool, which is one of the things that really drew me to him in the first place, and it was just this that I initially thought was the limitation of the shoulder range that put me off, but yeah, very cool. So, to start, can just straighten out the arms and shoulders and all that. Straighten out the legs. And now, I'm going to fold out the wheel, rotate the arm so that the elbow joint is pointed out, and you want to kind of bring this up. You want to rotate this panel that hangs off the underside of the forearm. You want to rotate it in, because it doesn't really have the room to clear this going outward, so just rotate it in. And then this joint will swing up, and that gets all of this lined up. And then you just use that double joint to bring the fist in, and this will peg into the underside of the shoulder, and like the fist, if it's down, just push that up. And that is one shoulder. Actually, while I'm doing this, I'm going to take the little roll bar thing and fold that down too. And on this side, wheel, rotate the arm, rotate the panel out, bring this up, curl the elbow in, and then tap that into place, and bring that down. Going to take the wheels on the legs and rotate those out, because otherwise you're really not going to be able to bring these legs together. And then clip that together. Okay. The backpack, going to untab and unfurl all of this. And there's a lot to unfurl, but it tucks away pretty nicely, I think. Let's bring all that out. Now, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. So you want to disconnect the upper torso from the midriff section first, because that will allow you to pop open this door. And once the door is popped open, you can disconnect the head neck panel and swing that around, and then this will come back around and close up. You can't do any of this when this is still in place. So do that, and now this entire upper body will rotate 180 degrees so that it's now in, like, upside down and pointed backwards. And that will give you the room you need to bring the shoulder sections in. And those just peg and tab together. And yeah, I don't know, I just think that's really cool how that whole upper body comes together. And then the flaps, they just fold in and tab in. There's like a little circular peg here that goes into this screw hole on either side there. And also clip that goes over this, and that will kind of peg and clip in. Come on. There we go. Peg and clip in. And then these bits come together and peg in the center, and that gives you the front of the vehicle. You want to rotate the waist 180 degrees, and it's actually, personally, I think it's actually easier to take these flaps apart when the legs are separated, but you can do it together. But this just untabs and untabs, untabs and untabs, and bring the legs back together again and make sure that these meet up as well. So now this is going on. Now it's a simple matter of curling the legs in at that lower knee joint and then bringing the hips forward so that all of this pegs together, and then the feet straighten out, swing around, and will clip into the roof. And there you go. There is Glober's Jeep mode, I guess. Now, I do have some criticisms of this vehicle mode, but that transformation is not one of them. I think that transformation is incredibly interesting and cool, and it does a lot of really fascinating but like effective things, like the way that the torso rotates 180 degrees upside down, but like just the upper torso is kind of wild. What we're left with is this, and it looks like a metal Cardbot figure because of the somewhat angry looking eyes behind the windshield. I do have a couple of mild criticisms about this mode. It rolls well, but I mean, I feel like you can probably tell for the most part what my criticisms are. One, this big chunk sticking out down here is a little bit It's not terrible. It's not as bad as, say, Legacy Trailbreaker, Trailcutter, whatever. But this is still not terrific, though at least the hips have this little pattern on the side that kind of make it look like there's maybe like gas canisters down here or something. Also, obviously not a fan of what's going on up here. I get that this is molded to look like bars for like carrying stuff, like strapping stuff to the roof. There's even like little crossbars molded in here, so that's cool. But it's the feet. It's the fact that the feet are just straight up right there. I kind of wish that these could somehow fold away a little bit. Like either have them flip in so that they aren't sticking out of the front here and they're more just like lined up with this, or something. I don't know. But this is just a little bit meh for my taste. And then also, it's a small thing, but I don't really like the hollow diamond shape right in there. I guess you can't really see through. You kind of can, but you can't. But like, there's just a hole. It was right there. I'm sure there's reasoning behind it in terms of like engineering or whatever, but that is a little bit. It's not nowhere near as unsightly as what's going on up here, but that's just a little bit like meh. But like, other than those nitpicks, this actually comes together really well. I mean, they did black for the windows all the way around, including the back side windows, which you don't normally see. And like, these are two separate pieces. They of course did the black for the front windshield because that makes the eyes pop. But like, that's cool. You've got silver on all the rims. There's this kind of gunmetal gray plastic well, this is plastic, like goes all the way around the wheel wells on the front and rear bumper, which is really neat. It is a little bit unfortunate that that gray also kind of splits the front section where like the headlights are, but because of the gigantic silver guard up front, it's not that difficult to look elsewhere and not really notice that. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff happening here. And then of course the tempographs, like the universal compass symbol, I guess, right there, and like the safari patterning that also you get on like the back, as well as that one asymmetrical bit on the front. I don't mind the asymmetry here. The orange bars up there, which unfortunately I think are kind of muddied by the yellow tones here. But I also think it's cool that they did the tail lights, not just with this really nice metallic red, like that is a really nice metallic red, but this kind of glossy black trim that may be plastic, but it might also be paint. I can't entirely tell, but like, I don't know. That's a surprising amount of effort to put into tail lights that you only see in vehicle mode, and they're the tail lights. But I really like those tail lights. They look good. Overall, other than like, the other stuff I feel like is no big deal. It's this. This is the thing that really stands out to me in this mode, and I really wish this was a little bit different, in particular, I mean the feet. But like, even so, this is a pretty solid vehicle mode, and that transformation is fantastic. I love transforming this guy. It's so weird and interesting. Size-wise, he compacts, but like, so does everyone else. So, he's still noticeably smaller than Tobavi Wild Chief. And definitely smaller than Black Hook, but Black Hook doesn't really compact when he transforms into his ship mode, so maybe not the best comparison, I don't know. He does look a little bit bigger than Tacky, but not by much, and I kind of feel like if you imagine the size of the imaginary drivers that would fit inside these vehicles, this actually kind of works in terms of scale, at least for me. And then, as you might expect, because Savinard's robot mode was much bigger than Glober, the vehicle mode is also much bigger. Though, I think Glober does actually work. Like, you could put him up here. He's definitely not going to fit back here because of the roof feet. But, like, this, it does work. He can rest on top of this, or you can, like, have him go up a little bit further. He does roll around a bit, no matter where you put him. But still, he can go there. I guess maybe this spot, not so great because of the stuff hanging out down here that kind of makes the wheels not want to find purchase super well. But yeah, that works. And that's it for Glober. Glober, as I said before, is a figure that I passed on because I didn't like the shoulder articulation limitations, but then I found out that he doesn't actually have the limitations that I thought he had. And that made me much more keen to check him out. And I'm glad I did, because he is actually really cool. He's a little bit limited in a few places, but way less than you might think. And the vehicle mode isn't the best out of all the metal Cardbot figures I own, but like, that's not really saying much, because I feel like they don't all really have winner vehicle modes, though I guess most of the ones I have actually are pretty darn cool. I guess maybe, would I put him above Bloodwing in terms of vehicle mode? That is a question, because I feel like Bloodwing's vehicle mode is a bit on the meh side. Yeah, I think I might put Glober's vehicle mode above Bloodwing's, but point is, he's cool. He is a figure that I'm very glad I finally got, and I kind of wish I had gotten him sooner, because then I could have probably gotten him for cheaper, because importing costs are still a bit more than I would like, and more than they used to be. But it is what it is, it's currently what we're stuck with. Tired of being stuck with. But yeah, Glober is cool. He's very cool. I like his design. His transformation, as I said, is very neat. I mean, I just did it in like a minute, and it's like, come on, that transformation was really neat. And as I said before, his card accessory is actually really cool. It's not intrusive like so many others are. It's not disappointing like way too many have been. I really like how this works. I like that you can do stuff like have the whip like going over his shoulder if you wanted to do something like that, or have it posed in like different, like, it just, I don't know, it's cool. And it's a large whip. He's a neat figure that you do gotta give him a little bit of grace with a few things. Some of his posing is a little bit limited in just the things clashing into things and stuff. I feel like all figures, or not all, but like a lot of figures have those slight issues is the wrong word, but those slight like nuances to them. But yeah, Glober is super cool. He looks neat. Point is, he's cool. Thank y'all for watching. I'm going to stop talking. As of recording this, I don't have anything else new lined up, so I don't know what the next video is going to be unless the other thing that I have ordered that has not actually shipped yet, that should have shipped like probably a week ago. Maybe that'll show up by the time, in time for me to get that video done before this goes live on YouTube. Who knows? But again, thank y'all for watching, and I'll see you in whatever the next video ends up being.